Hi everybody, this is Mr. RB back with part 2 of Make Your Own Analytical Cubist Drawing. Today we're going to take the paper weaving we created last time and turn it into a drawing. And I'll show you a couple simple steps to do that. First, we're going to need some tape. Any sort of tape will do. I have clear tape today. I'm going to take my paper weaving from last time. Oops, upside down. That's better. I'm going to put a piece of paper in front of the weaving. And I'm just going to tape from back to front. I want to keep them from wiggling because I'm going to be tracing. And if you've ever traced things, you know sometimes the top paper moves or the bottom thing moves and the lines don't line up the way you wanted them to. Anyhow, next I'm going to use a window right here in the house. It's daytime, so I have daylight coming in, and that'll be enough light to make my regular house window act like a light box. I'll show you how. I'm going to tape my drawing or my weaving, which has a plain piece of paper over it, directly to the window. I want it to be snug against the glass, so I'm adding a couple extra pieces of tape down here in the corners, and I'll add a couple at the top corners as well. As long as you can see the lines from your paper weaving coming through your fresh paper, then it's good enough. Notice that I now have lines from both the side view and front view of the original Jackie Robinson pictures showing. And I'm going to take some of each. So I see this line coming along the side of his face. I come up, I'm going to stop there. Here's a bit of a mouth. There's some teeth. Nice smile. A little under the nose. Here's an eye over here. And curiously enough, here's another eye from, well, this one was from the other drawing originally, but now they're all going to be part of one drawing. Again, we're trying to show two moments in time from two different points in space, all on one two-dimensional drawing. Working now around the cap, the baseball cap. Oop, a little bit of tape's getting in the way, so I'm pulling that back. I like how this bee from the Braves on his cap sort of turns in space there. Notice that there are seemingly two bats coming through here. One was from the side view, one was from the front view. And they sort of intersect a bit. There's a gap in the middle, probably where there was a little gap in our weaving, but we're okay with that. I'm just going along picking out lines that I see and adding them in. At some point, you may start to wonder, what is it that you actually have in this drawing? Which lines have you included? It can get pretty confusing. Confusing is something that people have often said in looking at analytical Cubist drawings. They're so fragmented and broken into pieces that it can be very hard to tell what's going on. And it is definitely not the way we usually think of seeing. One of the things it did, though, was open up ideas of abstraction, made the way for what would later be complete and total abstraction in painting and sculpture. Kind of like seeing these letters down here that were on the uniform. Again, I don't have to include every line, but I do want to have an interesting drawing, and enough is good, too much is not so good. One way to know, well, I'm going to lift up some of the tape that I have holding it down to the window. And when I lift up, I can see what's actually on my new sheet of paper. I'm going to put this back down because I definitely need some more. This is far from done. Students often ask, and people have often asked, do you need to include the lines from the weaving? You can see how there's, I think you can see even on the video, there's enough of a line here. I'm going to include some of those lines. I do not have to include all of them. In the end, we're composing a picture, and the part that matters is what makes the picture work. So it has to work both in abstract terms, that means just in terms of the arrangement of shapes, lines, colors on the page. And I can pick and choose, or pull out, or abstract whatever bits from the original will help me make an interesting, unified, balanced, harmonious composition. Notice I'm just going along, tracing over lines as they catch my attention. And I want to look and see what I actually have on my paper, so I'm going to lift up the front page again and see what I actually have included so far. I'm going to need just a little more. The middle feels a little bit empty. I'm going to add just a little bit more there. If, as you're working on your drawing, you're thinking, this looks very strange, and it's getting a bit hard to tell what's going on, well, you might be on your way to making a genuine analytical cubist drawing in that case, because once we fragment things and show bits of reality as we observe it from different angles and at different moments in time, it's a little hard for most of us to feel comfortable with that way of representing the world. Again, the Cubists were starting to think about several things. One of them was Einstein's theories about relativity, that space and time, the difference between matter and energy or light, were really just human experiences of them, that in reality all those things were closely knit together and often different expressions of each other. So energy and matter, different forms of the same thing. And they wanted to show this on a two-dimensional plane. Also time, which we experience in very human ways, in linear fashion, going from moment to moment. They wanted to show time as, in the Einstein view, as existing in a certain sense all at once, so that every moment in time would be noted and represented. All right, I think I have enough there to get started. Next, I'm going to show you just briefly a bit of how I go about coloring this in, and then I think you're on your own. You're going to be able to color yours in. I hope you'll enjoy doing that, but let me show you a few steps. I've collected a couple things to use for coloring in. I have my regular pencil. I found a red colored pencil, even has some eraser, and I found this yellow highlighter. You may have other things, you may have lots of things. Whatever you want to try using to color in, see how it goes. Here's some things that you might want to keep in mind. One, I don't need to color in every single part of this. I can add color slowly by building up a range of tone, Notice I'm going one direction at first, and then in order to get a fuller range of values and get rid of some of those white peekaboos in areas, I'm going to go in the opposite direction to fill in. I do want to get a nice range of values from very light light, which I can use the paper as my whitest white and my lightest light, to very deep and dark. This graphite pencil, just a regular pencil, will only give me dark gray at the most. So if that's the darkest dark I'm going to have, I definitely want to push that and get some really nice rich dark areas. Drawings that only have light to medium tend to get a little dull to look at. Sort of like our very gray rainy days where the sun never comes out and you don't have any really bright areas. After a while it can get very tiresome. If you find your drawing, this one or really any drawing, and you've been putting a lot into it, there's a lot of different colors, there's so many details, and yet somehow it all seems just a little dull, could be that you lack a full range from light light to dark dark. Make sure you have a full range of value right there that can spruce up a drawing or painting very quickly. So I'm just going around picking out shapes and coloring them in, and I just want to make a balanced, lovely, harmonious arrangement of shapes and colors at this point. I am not looking to make a realistic depiction of the colors that would go with the original images. The early Cubists, the analytical Cubists in particular, used a very limited color range. One of the effects of this was that it brought more emphasis to the structure or form, the shapes that they were using, less to the lovely beautifulness that color can add to things. I have had students who used a full range, a rainbow full of colors, and sometimes it works out really well. I've also had a lot of students who were highly successful using only 2 or 3 colors. Some of the most elegant drawings were done just with pencil. Over here, I'm going to go lighter. I want to have some light grays as well as some deep dark grays. Notice that a lot of the shapes are open shapes. That is to say, it's hard to say just where they end. There's no closure. So when you're coloring in, you need to decide where the color ends or where it begins. I'm going to make that edge a little darker. So even though this is all a gray shape, it's got its lighter areas, its medium areas, and even some darker areas. Another thing I can do is layer in a bit of this red. So I can get not only red and pink, but pinkish gray, reddish gray. It'll just give me a richer range within a very small color field. At any time I can switch to bringing in the marker. I will say I was playing around with this yesterday and I found that I can put marker over the pencil. I kind of like that glowing neon yellow with the gray around it. I did find it a lot harder to get the pencil to go over the areas where I had used marker. So you never know. I mean, as you're using different materials, some of which might be things you wouldn't usually think of for making art, you can explore and discover, and you may find that they have new possibilities they open up, and in other ways they may have certain limitations. I know last lesson when we were learning about perspective, we also learned about the artist who uses tape to make all his op art drawings. So along with playing around with perspective and line and pattern. He's also playing around with our idea of where art shows up, what art can be made of, whether art needs to be permanent or precious, or whether it can be made of just materials that it seems so ordinary we wouldn't necessarily take them that seriously usually. I thought that was a really interesting way that he challenged our ideas. And some of that really goes back to these early Cubists. In addition to the drawings that they made, they started making collage pictures, and some of the materials they included were just things from around their house. Very ordinary materials transformed into something exceptional. Anyhow, I could keep coloring, but I want you to get started. And meanwhile, here's a piece I finished yesterday. Notice that even in the finished version, I still used some of the white of the paper, for instance, down in here and here, over here and here, as part of the subject. You do not need to color in every single shape. You could if you chose to. You can combine different colors to get new colors, such as this pink with the gray to make a sort of pinkish reddish gray, or laying the yellow over the gray as I did here to get both yellow and yellow gray. So see what your materials or whatever you have around can do. Enjoy and take a photo and send it into your art teacher so we can see what it is you're doing. If you have any questions, please let us know. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.